All right, juniors, before you start reading Act Two, I just wanted to make sure we are all on the same page with Act One. So I took some notes. Let's go through these together really quickly. We'll start with the setting. Hopefully, you realize this was set in the South Side of Chicago. If you did not know anything about the South Side of Chicago, you should know it's predominantly African American. It's a low socioeconomic status community. So you probably realize that just through the description of the Younger's apartment. So when we looked at the apartment, they said that the furniture once was nice, right? It was clearly selected with hope and arranged with pride. That tells you a lot about Mama and her husband, Big Walter. It's also personified that furniture. It says the furniture is tired, so it's no longer nice furniture. Hopefully, you noticed a comparison between the furniture itself and the people in the Younger family. They're tired, just like most African Americans of this time. So, ideally, this brought you back to that Langston Hughes poem where it's talking about what happens to a dream deferred. Hopefully, you realize this is similar to this possibility of maybe it just sags like a heavy load, right? Everyone's exhausted through the hardships they're facing. Specifically, we're focused on African Americans in this poem or in this play. Um, Notice that the Younger family, it's a prideful family. So although their furniture is starting to get pretty dilapidated, they try to hide that. So they patch it up, they put doilies on it, they move their furniture around to cover up like holes in the floor, right? Where their carpet or their tile might be coming up. They want to hide that. So they're a proud group of people. Um, Hopefully you noticed, I think it was Walter who mentions like there was another bombing today. So in this time period, there's a lot of violence towards African Americans by these racist white people. We'll see that more as the play progresses, but just keep that in mind when you continue to read. Um, Hope is a big theme I want you to start picking up on as you read. Notice right now, there's very little hope for the youngers, right? And again, for African Americans in general. This is represented or symbolized through that little window that's in the youngers' apartment. Little window, right, lets in very little light. Their one sense of hope seems to be this check that's coming. Every person in the family seems obsessed with this check. So they're getting $10,000 because Mama's husband, Big Walter, has died. All right, I also want you to pay attention to everyone's dream. Mama and Ruth have the most humble dreams. They're very similar. Ruth just wants her family to be happy. Mama, again, really focused on the family. Her big dream has always been to have a garden. She wants a house with a garden for her family. So when her and Big Walter first bought this apartment, this was really just their starter out home. She had big plans of moving into a nicer house in a nicer subdivision. But again, those things got deferred and it never really happened. I don't know if you notice, Mama constantly kind of walks around with her plant and constantly takes cares of her plant, waters her plant, brings it to that window. That represents her dream and her trying to nourish her dream. Benitha, unlike a lot of women, specifically African American women of the time, has big aspirations. She wants to be a doctor. Mama seems to support that. Her brother doesn't really. So continue to watch Benitha's dream as it progresses. Walter wants to own a liquor store. Mama probably is not going to be a big fan of that because she's super religious. Um, Ruth, let's break down characters a little bit. That's Walter's wife. So that's Travis's mom. She is described as a settled woman. Disappointment hangs in her face. So again, she has had very modest dreams. She just wants her family to be happy. And even that's not really happening. You probably noticed the tension between her and Walter. She is a very responsible, practical person, and she's probably constantly frustrated with having to not only raise Travis, but also kind of raise Walter, her husband. So she, again, responsible. She's waking up Travis. She has to wake up Walter. When Walter is trying to talk about his dream of the liquor store, she keeps saying, just basically shutting him up, right? Eat your eggs. Walter takes that as his wife's not supporting his dream. So he gets frustrated with her and she's just as frustrated with him. So she says to him a little later in the chapter, right? So you'd rather be Mr. Arnold than be his chauffeur. So I would rather be living in Buckingham Palace. That's where she's showing how ridiculous she thinks Walter's dream is. She's like, yeah, I would love to be the Queen of England. Doesn't that sound nice? But that's not really the cards were dealt. So she tries to keep her husband a little more realistic. And as a result, he gets angry with her. You probably noticed poor Travis, 10 or 11-year-old Travis, he just wants 50 cents for school. That's all he wants. He's supposed to give 50 cents to his teacher. And Ruth is like, we don't have that kind of money just to throw away. It's not that she doesn't want to give her son 50 cents. She would love to be able to provide for him in that sense, but they don't have the money. So she's prioritizing things like food and rent over the 50 cents for school. Walter, opposite of Ruth here, right? When Travis asks for it, he just tosses him the 50 cents. And then did you notice that he gives an additional 50 cents? That's really just to get under Ruth's skin. So him and Ruth are constantly bickering. Their marriage isn't exactly in the best state right now. Walter is unrealistic. He's irresponsible. He tends to be a little lazy. So again, he's having to be woken up by his wife, right? He's a grown man. That's kind of ridiculous. When we first see him, he's wearing mismatched PJs. He stays out late with his friends. And again, this is a 2-bedroom apartment. So Travis is supposed to sleep on the couch. So when his dad and his dad's buddies, Willie and Bobo, are up late, that keeps Travis up. Ruth gets upset with that. Walter doesn't really care. He's not as responsible as Ruth. Let's look at Benita. She is an intellectual. She kind of reminds me of the Jordan Baker of this play. So she is kind of a modern woman. She's not super concerned with getting married or having children, with which Ruth and Mama just are kind of flabbergasted by. She wants to be a doctor. She knows she won't need a man to take care of her. She is willing to take care of herself. So again, it's not like she's anti-marriage, but that's not her priority. So we're going to notice in scene 2, right? She does seem to be interested in a man, but she does not want to throw away her dreams for a man's dreams. She is really concerned with finding out who she is as a person. So you've probably noticed that she has tried a bunch of different hobbies. This is all to figure out who she is. So she's had guitar lessons, she's tried acting, she's taken horseback riding lessons, she's done photography. She's really just trying to discover herself. You'll see in scene 2, there's going to be a character who helps her find out who she really is. And then finally, Mama, right? Super family focused. She's a proud, hopeful woman. She's very caring, super intuitive. As soon as Mama walks into that scene, she asks Ruth, like, what's going on with you today? You don't seem well. And then, right, as we know, by the end of the scene, Ruth passes out. We find out in scene 2 why. Okay. Scene 2, we're continuing to look at this pride, right? Mama makes the whole family clean the house every weekend because she's really concerned with this image. Let's talk about Ruth's pregnancy really quickly. Benita, her kind of gut reaction is to say, hey, where's the baby going to live? That kind of is a punch in the gut for Ruth, who obviously has those same concerns, but doesn't want to hear it vocalized by other members of the family. Mama's not concerned with those things. Mama's number one priority is the family, and she's just excited when she hears news about another younger, right, coming in. When Ruth is talking about going to the doctor, Ruth mentions a she. Again, it's uncommon for there to be female doctors right now, and Mama knows their OBGYN is a male. So when Ruth says she, Mama does not just consider this a slip of tongue, right? Mama is already worried that Ruth is considering an abortion. So this abortion would be done by this female doctor. This is illegal at the time, so this is something that Ruth would have to hide. This is very under the rug. Mama, again, she's a very protective, caring character. So when Benita and Travis are playing around in the living room, killing the cockroaches, right? Mama protects him from the bug spray. She offers to cook home cooked meals for Asagai when Asagai said he's far away from home. Mama, unlike Benita, is very uneducated, and that's probably why she prioritizes Benita's education so much, right? She wants to give Benita the things that she did not have. When that check finally comes, the $10,000, she looks to Travis and says, like, are there enough zeros on this? Because she's uneducated. Travis, again, is getting an education that Mama didn't get herself. Asagai was our new character in scene 2. That's Benita's new love interest. So you heard about George Murchison in scene 1. Benita was not super interested in George, right? George comes from money, but she says he's shallow. So when she's talking about the shallowness of George, she means that George cares about appearance. He cares about money. He doesn't really care about the things that Benita seems to care about. She also feels like George wouldn't really support her dreams of being a doctor. He kind of thinks she's ridiculous and that a woman's place is in the home. Asagai, on the other hand, he's from Africa. He's an intellectual, right? She met him at college, and he's who really spurs Benita's interest in her African heritage. So he gives her that gift of the Nigerian robes, right? And then now she's super interested. Assimilation was one of the terms that I wanted you to focus on in Act One. Notice Benita is becoming more and more critical of people who choose to assimilate. So kind of throw away their culture in hopes of being accepted by the dominant culture. So in this case, African Americans acting white to be accepted by white people. He scorns Benita for being in assimilation herself. So he noticed that she perms her hair to make it more straight, right, to look more white, and he gives her those robes to kind of encourage the African culture. She is going to have a big interest now in this African culture, and she's going to feel more comfortable being herself because of Asagai. Lastly, let's talk about Walter again. He continues to feel unsupported in this scene, and all of his thoughts are on money. Mama's very disappointed in this, right? When Mama talks about Walter's father, Big Walter, his entire life was focused around his children. He worked himself to death in order to provide for his children. Walter's not that same way, right? Walter's just concerned with Walter and getting money. And this is really proven at the very end of the scene when he walks out and does not protest Ruth getting an abortion. Okay. If you guys have any questions about Act One, please let me know.